Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started. Welcome to this week's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you, and that is me. I am the founder of Lady Landlords, Becky Nova, and I thought today's episode would be a great opportunity to share a little bit more about me and how we even got to this place of having a Lady Landlords podcast. So our community, our Facebook group grows just so fast that I really wanted to make sure to take some time to share a little bit more about who I am, and we can get to know each other a little bit better today. So I have five fun facts that I would like to share about myself with you. So let's start here. One of the first things that many people actually do not know about is really kind of where I came from and what I used to do before I became a landlord. So most people can actually tell by the speed that I talk at or my accent that I am from New York. I was born and raised there, lived there for many years before going to university down in the DC area. So I lived in Washington, lived in Maryland, Virginia, been through all those different areas. And then I actually moved back to New York City to get a master's degree in psychology, of all things, but of psychology from Columbia University. Interestingly enough, though, my professional career has actually been in cancer research. One of the things that I've done for many years is help run clinical trials from either the hospital side and then now the pharmaceutical side for different types of lymphomas and leukemias. So that's actually my specialty, and it's been a very interesting ride in that career. That was very much me coming through with that concept of needing to get that 9-to-5 job, having to go to college. I am actually the first person in my family to make it to that level of education that I am really proud of. And it was something that you were just taught, go to school, get a good education, get a good job, and just kind of stay there until you retire. And unfortunately, that never really sat well with me. It was something that I always teetered that line between, is this something that my family kind of expects? Is this what I kind of have to do to have people be proud of me? Versus really my gut feeling saying, hey, this really kind of is not the right place for me. I know that there's other things that I really want to be doing in my life. And I can't go into all that this episode, but there's definitely been times that I have kind of stayed in this world in professionalism and education and medical research. And then I've kind of left for a little while, come back, and I've kind of teetered between those two worlds for quite some time. But it was actually fun fact number 2 for you, actually does share a little bit about one of those times that I had actually left cancer research. Back in my 20s, I was working for a company that shall remain nameless that I did not enjoy at all. And it was a place that I decided that I was going to leave. I actually felt that I was asked to do something by the owner of the company that I considered unethical. So I went back to my desk. I wrote my letter of resignation and I just walked out. I left that 6-figure salary, really not having any plan, any idea of what I was necessarily going to do next. So the best thing I could think of was actually go to one of my local watering holes in New York, one of the bars that I loved around the corner from my apartment. And I kind of said to the bartender, hey, I do not know where to go. What should I do next? Bartender, of course, was like, lady, I don't know you. I can't help with this. So he said, ask on Facebook, just figure that out. Just, ask people you actually know. So I said, sure. And that night, actually, I posted a message on my Facebook that said I wanted to move to Europe and said, where should I go? Now, I actually only ended up with one response from somebody I went to high school with that told me that I should move to Sevilla. Well, when I looked at that, I was like, great, sounds interesting. Not really sure where that is, though. So I ended up actually having to Google it, found out it was in Spain. I bought my plane ticket that day for 8 weeks later. And then I spent 2 months selling everything I owned in New York. And that was it. I got on a plane and I went to Spain. Now, even though I come from a Hispanic family, I actually did not grow up learning Spanish. That was something that my parents wanted to make sure that English was ingrained with us, even though I was raised in my grandmother's home, who is from Venezuela and fluent in Spanish. So now here I arrive in Spain, being really kind of lost. Luckily, I had a very good ear for Spanish, listening to my grandmother, especially with the music and the television that she always watched on Telemundo. And that helped me a little bit, but really not the same. So when I got to Spain, I really needed to figure out a way to make things work. So my way to do that was actually to go to an Irish bar. Once again, I'm noticing that this story has a lot to do with different bars, but different ways to be able to meet people, and networking is something that I'm really big on. So I was able to meet someone in an Irish bar that worked at a hostel that needed somebody that had very good English to be able to provide historical walking tours for their clients. Well, my English is pretty good. So I was actually able to put together 4 different tourists. I actually started a rather large tour company throughout southern Spain where I was able to take people on either historical walking tours and show them the palaces and the churches and explain the history really of Spain for quite some time. And it was something I actually really loved. Not only that, but I actually got to build in some nightlife as well. I used to take people on pub crawls. My claim to fame is I've actually probably taught more people in this world how to play beer pong than anyone else that you will ever meet in your life. So I've taught people in multiple countries. I actually expanded my tour company in Spain into Portugal. I then ended up buying a bar in Portugal, and then I bought a bus, and then I had people going from Spain to Portugal, Portugal back to Spain. It was great. It really was. So that's kind of fun fact about me. Number 2 was really what I was able to do when I was living abroad. Unfortunately, though, the bar that I had bought in Portugal was actually a really bad idea. I lost over 6 figures really, really fast in that downhill spiral. And unfortunately, I ended up moving home to the States in my early 30s, pretty much penniless, pretty much homeless. I ended up having to move back in with my parents. That was not a great idea. That is nothing that somebody wants to be doing when they're 30 years old. But it was either that or go live with my ex-boyfriend. And I don't really know which one of those 2 options actually would have been the worst outcome. But either way, when I came back to the States, it gave me the opportunity to kind of get on my feet and figure out what was next for me. And that kind of leads us now into fun fact number 3. Fun fact number 3 is what that really led me to was becoming what I call the accidental landlord. I now have been living abroad for years. I loved it. I love travel. I would like to be able to move again. If any of you are following me on Instagram at Becky Nova 24, you know that a lot of what I do is spending my time is traveling and exploring new places. So the idea of buying a house, even for my own personal use, even for me to actually live in, sounded like a horrible, horrible idea. It was not something I planned on doing. My goal was to come back to the States, make some money again, and move right back over to Europe. But as what sometimes happens is we meet people that become important in our lives. At that time, I ended up meeting my now husband, Emilio. Emilio is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. He actually moved to the States right before his 18th birthday. And he very much came here with the American dream, not only the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, and everything that kind of goes around it, which was so not like me. I always explain that Emilio was really the ground to my kite. And that's a great way that we've been able to balance each other. But when we were dating, after a couple of years and we'd moved into together and we're living in the South Bronx, we actually used to live in a 6th-floor walk-up. So think about that on laundry day, on grocery day, on leg day at the gym. Not exactly the most ideal situation, but very popular here in New York. So at that point in time, my then fiance, Emilio, had said, you know, I really want to get moving forward. I really want to be able to take this relationship to the next step. I want to be able to buy some property. I want to get married. But he knew I was really in debt. He knew that I had lost just so much from when I was living in Europe and how much that business had really affected what my credit score was, what my credit card bills looked like. And it was still really a rough situation. So it was at that time that I said, okay, that's it. We got to figure this out. my goal was really, I had to prove my husband wrong and figure out how I can make sure to get my credit back on track and be able to come up with the money that would really make me that equal partner in being able to buy a home together. So fortunately, I was able to go back to cancer research and I found a consulting gig that was very time limited, but fortunately was a good income. And it was able to get me out of that debt and really help me get on that track to be able to save for a down payment again. Fortunately, also, I really, really actually enjoyed that company I was working for. I ended up staying with them doing cancer research for quite a few years after that. But now all of a sudden I'm out of debt. I have good credit. I've worked my butt off to become financially literate and understand those things. My childhood, we ignored money. The reason we ignored money was because we did not have it. So I really didn't know how to handle things or how to pay off credit cards or all of that. So I really spent this time now in my early 30s learning how to become financially literate and figuring out heads and tails of really what this world means. And to me, it was almost like trying to learn a whole new language all over again. But one thing that I realized was that I did not want to be in a position where we would end up buying our single family dream home that we're going to live in for 30 plus years and then just sit there and live mortgage payment to mortgage payment. That was something that I really did not like. So I always tell people I had this fantastic idea that we should move into a multifamily property, live in one side, rent out the other side, have that money coming in to help cover that mortgage. And that would be a great way to make money. Now, what that tells you then is that I had no idea what house hacking was. When I bought that first duplex that we ended up buying back in 2018, I had no idea about real estate investing. It was still something that I was really learning, but I knew that I was not going to be in that mortgage payment to mortgage payment type of bracket. I just was not going to do that. But when we then found that first property here in New York and bought that duplex, and we get to that closing table, and all of a sudden now I feel like I've signed my life away. I've written bigger checks than I ever thought that I'd be able to do in my life. And now all of a sudden I actually get a check back right there and then for the tenants living in that property. Day one, I'm getting paid. The second that happened, my entire mind shift changed. I just realized really what power real estate investing could actually bring to somebody, how this can actually change generational wealth, how this was able to change what the trajectory for my husband and I was actually going to be able to look like. And I said right then and there at that closing table, okay, I'm doing this again. And everybody in the room just kind of laughed at me and was like, nope, there's no way you can do that. It's way too soon. This is crazy. And I was like, no, I'm going to find a way. Now, after that first closing, that's really when I went on a tirade of listening to every podcast I could find, every book I could find, every person's brain that had ever done anything in real estate before. I spent all my time really consuming content all about real estate investing. And that was actually how I was able to then continue to grow our portfolio. In the 2 years since then, my husband and I had been able to purchase another 10 doors within our rental portfolio, which now is over $1.5 million and also brings in a six-figure income every year. So that has really been a huge change for our family. And it really can be for yours too. There are so many other women out there that are really making moves in this industry and are seeing the impact just like the one that I'm sharing that I personally went through. So this is then going to bring me up to my fun fact number 4 for you today. Fun fact number 4 is Lady Landlords. How did this come about? So now my husband and I have these rental properties. We now are managing them. We self-manage all of our properties, which are either throughout the state of New York, mostly in Westchester County and the Hudson Valley, but we actually also own property in my husband's home country in the Dominican Republic. We manage all those properties. Now, we've been doing that for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, March 2020 happened. Well, I already was sitting around feeling pretty lonely being a lady landlord. I didn't really have a lot of other people that I could talk to about these situations, or there were issues that kept coming up with our tenants that we really had to figure out, like, hey, this is an awkward situation. How do we handle this? What do we say yes to? What do we say no to? But I just really kind of felt lonely that there was nobody else that I could really talk to that was going through something similar. But when the quarantine here in New York happened in the middle of March, my husband was one of those people that actually had their job shut down. My husband now comes home and is like, hey, babe, work's closed. We have no income coming in from my side. Like, this is going to be like really tough. What are we going to kind of do? My response was, oh my God, we need to go buy more rental property. My husband looked at me and was just like, I said I just lost my job. Why are you saying we should buy more property? And I was like, it just makes sense. We need that extra rental properties because then that way we'll have another stream of income. We'll have extra income coming in because you know what? We don't know how long this pandemic's going to last. We don't know what the future holds. Let's make sure that we have other streams coming in. My husband thought I was nuts. He turns around, walks away from me, walks into the bedroom, shuts the door, and it's kind of like, that's it. Like he just cannot handle with what the words that are coming out of my mouth are right now. So what do? I say, you know what? I'm going to find some other people that think the same way that I do and realize the power within real estate investing. So I went back on the internet, found handy old Facebook over there and started a Facebook group called Lady Landlords. And I sat there and I thought that I would be the only person in that group, but you shocked me. Day in and day out, we get requests from other women that are looking to join the community. I had no idea that you were out there. I had no idea that you were the person that I was looking for and the community that I was looking for. And I was just flabbergasted every single day that we get more and more requests of women joining and women that'll post in the group for the help that they're looking for in those same awkward situations that I felt that I was going through years ago myself are now in that group getting just instant answers to be able to help themselves running their real estate portfolios. It is a great tool that is now there to help make sure that you can buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio. I think it's a fantastic thing. Over these past couple of years, there's clearly been a lot of sadness, heartbreak with what many people have been going through. But there are some interesting little silver linings in what has occurred throughout these past couple of years. And I'm really proud to see Lady Landlords continuing to grow during that time. That's also something that I noticed a lot of other women were coming to the group also saying, hey, I don't want to go back to my job. I don't want to go back to that commute. I want to be able to stay home with my families. Now is the time. Now is the time to make those changes. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that we now all have a platform that we can go to really get the help and answers that we need to be able to grow our portfolios. So that was now fun fact number 4 about how Lady Landlord started. Last fun fact I have for you, number 5 here, is just a little bit of the other things that I like to do besides now running my portfolio and also helping our members out through the Lady Landlords Facebook group. A couple of things, as I mentioned, travel is something that I'm really, really passionate about. My why for real estate investing and what I plan on doing with now having this portfolio is now actually being able to move abroad. Years ago, I did it with no money. Years ago, I just kind of jumped. Once again, I was in my 20s. It was a little bit different back then. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go live abroad and see what happens. Now, though, I'm going to be in a much better situation because when I live abroad, I'm still going to be collecting checks and I'm still going to have that income coming in and I'm not going to have to worry about how I'm going to be paying for things. So like I said, you can definitely make sure to kind of follow my journey on Instagram at Becky Nova 24 about my goals of living abroad. Many of you know last year, I was fortunate enough to live in the Dominican Republic for the winter. This year, I was in the Dominican Republic for quite some time. And then I also was down in Florida for about 6 or 8 weeks. So my goal of being the youngest snowbird and avoiding snow at all possible, especially here in New York, is really coming to fruition. And it's really all thanks to real estate investing. Another thing that is a hobby of mine that's oddly enough also grown out of real estate is on the weekends, you can usually find me at either our duplex that we are house hacking or at one of my rental properties, landscaping. I actually really like gardening. I really like working. I really like cutting my grass, which just sounds really weird, but there's just something about it when it's yours. I get really excited to be able to grow my grass just so I can cut it. I always have my flowers out at multiple different properties that I like to grow. So that's something that I really work on. And I really like to keep our properties looking fantastic for our tenants and for our neighbors at all of our rental properties. So that's something else I'll be doing on the weekend. And the last thing that you will always find me at every single week during the summer is playing softball. I have played softball and field hockey my entire life. And softball is definitely the place that you will see me throughout the summer. So if anyone is in the Northeast and knows of any games or pickup games and needs a pitcher, I am here. Just reach out. I'm always happy to come play and fill in. But I hope this episode today gave you a little bit of an idea of who I am, and I hope that helps as you're kind of in the group as we get to know each other a little bit better. If you have not introduced yourself in Lady Landlords, regardless of if you are a new member or if you've been a member with us for quite some time now, please feel free always to make a post and say hi. Say hi to me if any of the things that I mentioned are something that also you can relate to. I'd love to hear that about you, but always feel free to make a welcome post within the group so I can also learn a little bit more about you and we can really kind of connect in that group and get to learn about all of our different members there. So thank you very much for listening to the episode today. Make sure to hit subscribe regardless of if you are watching this on our YouTube channel or if you were listening to this wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to these episodes so that way you do not miss the next episode, which comes out every single Tuesday. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you back next week for our episode of the Lady Landlords podcast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate journey, visit lady-landlords.com/roadmap to book a one-on-one workshop with me. I'll help you determine your next best strategy. Or you could subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.